Coming up next, it's the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. We're going to talk about the conspiracy theory brewing out there amongst the internet wrestling community pertaining to WWE. Also, is WWE Heartless? We go in-depth on Drew McIntyre and this week's Star of the Week, also to be announced this week here on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime, which starts right now.
Number one since 1998 on television, ESPN Radio, and the World Wide Web. This is the Pro Wrestling Report with your hosts, the man they call Meathead, Frank Cosentino, and Damian Nelson. Professional wrestling news, opinion, and information from fans for fans.
Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time for Friday, December 18th, 2009. Damian Nelson alongside David Hero and the man they call Meathead. And what a week it's been in professional wrestling.
Hi.
Big Impact just last night. Slammies this past Monday night on Raw. Lacey Von Erich, our guest, this past Tuesday night on PWR
It's been
Radio.
a hot week, and you behaved yourself, thank God.
Ish.
But obviously the big news of the week is the new WWE Champion. And a lot of fallout has come to WWE from the universe, as they call it, since that event this past Sunday at WWE TLC on pay-per-view. Gentlemen, the discussion that we're going to start with.
Champion?
Sheamus is the new WWE Champion.
Never heard of the guy before.
I will give you credit where credit is due. David Hero, you said here on this program for the last several weeks when everyone else out there were naysayers, including myself, saying Sheamus would defeat John Cena
I called it
at
the
TLC.
night he won that Battle Royal.
You did. But here's the point that
So
I
that
think...
doesn't show enough initiative, because once he won the Battle Royal, he became a number one contender.
But I did
So you
say-
were only a
No,
50-50 chance.
Didn't I say Sheamus would headline WrestleMania?
You said Jack Swagger would have
That
it in
hasn't happened
WrestleMania.
You didn't put a number on it.
WrestleMania 26.
You're going to do that. You're going to sit here and do that.
I-
You may have been right about Sheamus in this instance. Here's the thing. Sheamus looked like he belonged in that match against John Cena
Matter of fact,
at TLC this
that
past Sunday.
TLC match was a welcome to the main event, Sheamus.
Sheamus, aside from the fact that he's been on Raw for about a minute, he proved that he can hang with the big dogs. And he did so in that main event matchup at TLC. And I think once that match was announced to be happening where it was on the card, you pretty much knew
You knew.
that John Cena was losing.
Yeah. Because that title match was, what, fourth from the top?
Yeah. At its
Yeah.
deepest.
And then you knew that when DX is going to headline, they're going to send everybody home happy. Were you happy with that outcome?
DX winning the tag belts or Sheamus winning a belt?
DX.
No, that's stupid. It makes no
They beat
sense.
Chris Jericho, right?
They beat Jericho and Big Show. The team of
Yeah.
Jericho. Not Chris Jericho alone.
What
Which
has
is what
happened,
Big
though,
Show did to Jericho on Monday Night Raw. Left him alone.
What has happened is, on top of Sheamus being the WWE Champion, Drew McIntyre is the World Wrestling Entertainment Intercontinental Champion. And, gentlemen, a conspiracy theory of sorts has been formed out in the internet wrestling community regarding why Sheamus and Drew are champions on their respective shows. A lot of negative reaction to Sheamus' WWE title win. Here's my question to that. And first I'll pose it to you, Meathead. The fans wanted change. We had all kinds of feedback, and all you heard was that we're sick of Cena. We're sick of Super Cena. We're sick of Cena Orton. We're sick of the same stuff on WWE Raw and pay-per-views month in, month out, year in, year out. They addressed that issue.
5 guys,
5 years,
5 years.
5 matches.
Yeah.
They addressed that issue. They put the title on Sheamus. Sheamus is the man for the company right now. And the fans lash out. If fans were asking for such a change, Meathead, why the negativity out there amongst the internet wrestling community pertaining to a change that they asked for?
The fans have a misplaced opinion of themselves as far as they can determine who's earned what spot. So, because it's Sheamus, they feel he hasn't earned his spot as the champion. It is what we want. It is a change.
What does
It's
everybody
something-
want?
It's something different. But like I said, the fans have a misplaced opinion that they can decide who earns what spot.
Well, I think it's also because it's been leaked out that Sheamus and Triple H are buddies.
And that's what I
So-
allude to all.
Because, guilty by association. They feel Sheamus doesn't deserve it because Triple H handpicked him. Well, Triple H, though, He wants someone that's going to work as hard as him, that's going to eat, sleep, the business the same way
There's
he does.
nothing wrong with that.
So he's going to pick someone that he feels can put the company on his back, a guy that's going to be a company guy, a team player, and that's why they pick Sheamus.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with a guy that works as hard as Triple H, wants to eat, sleep, and drink wrestling 24/7. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, and I alluded to it, and you clearly mentioned it, that's why you have such a backlash against Sheamus and Drew McIntyre becoming champions.
It's been less so driven at Drew, and we're going to go in depth on Drew McIntyre later in this episode. Been less driven at Drew and more driven at Sheamus. I don't think, David Hero, that anyone aside from you really thought that Sheamus would walk out of TLC, the new WWE champion. I think there's a level of shock out there.
Keep your
when
happy
people,
down.
People
Hey,
wanted change, and they were happy with the change enough of someone different being in that matchup. But once their beloved John Cena was encroached upon, was besmirched, if you will,
But here's the thing.
things went south.
It was the perfect match for that to happen.
Absolutely.
Because John Cena didn't get pinned.
Right.
He made a mistake and fell backwards. So technically, yeah, he lost, but it wasn't a strong win for Sheamus.
The fear was
Damn it, Dave Hero was right on two different pieces.
The fear is that later that night, and we discussed it during the pay-per-view, later that night, somehow or another John Cena would regain the championship, or if not that night, then the next night on Raw, neither of which happened. Sheamus, here to stay. Hey,
Till the next
let's break
pay-per-view.
it down. And we went in depth on Sheamus just a couple of weeks ago right here on this very program. Sheamus, he's good on the mic. He's got an amazing presence. He's got a distinction to him from other talents. And he's got in-ring abilities. So what? He's not been there for the last 10, 12 years.
And he's got the most important thing also. And don't laugh.
It?
I'm being serious. No, besides it, he won the Slammy for Breakout Star. Keep in mind, when Shawn Michaels beat Bret Hart, who won the Next Generation Superstar? Shawn Michaels had a huge run. It was the way of the Office getting Shawn Michaels over that saying, hey, he's our guy. We're going to run with him. I really believe they're going to build up Sheamus to be this monster up until WrestleMania.
And drop at WrestleMania and send him home happy?
He could drop it there. Otherwise, it'll be at the following pay-per-view.
With Triple H?
John Cena.
Here's what WWE is excellent at.
Manipulating the audience?
Exactly. Giving you what you don't want until you want it. They did it with Triple H in 2001. They did it with Brock Lesnar. They've done it with so many different
With John
people.
Cena. I mean,
that-
he was being
Yeah.
booed out of the building as the top
And they keep
babyface.
giving it to you, and they know that 98% of you are going to tune in each and every week to each and every show, regardless of this never watching again or whatnot, and you're going to still buy tickets, you're still going to buy merchandise, all that stuff. So it is in their best interest to push these new people down your throats and continue to push Sheamus down your throats, because there's nothing wrong with having a hated champion. There's
The
nothing
Rock.
wrong with
It
having
was
a hated
Die
champion.
Rocky Die.
Right.
And Rocky sucks. Became one of the biggest stars ever.
You then recognize the talent. You know, Vince McMahon said it. Remember, he went on air in 1997 on Raw. We're not going to give you good guy versus bad guy. We're not going to insult your intelligence. We're going to give you entertainment. This is
Well, I'm waiting
entertaining.
for that. It's entertaining to you guys. Again, the product overall.
I didn't
now-
say I'm entertained.
Right.
I'm
the
pleased
product
that they're going
overall
in
right
a
now
different
is just not
direction.
entertaining.
Sheamus is entertaining?
I said the product overall is
No,
not
but
entertaining.
We're
Sheamus is
talking
part
about
of the product.
Sheamus.
Right
He's
now,
the product.
and Sheamus is entertaining because, as Frank Costantino always said, it's something different, and that's what That's what I'm going to take away from it. That's the part I like. Something else.
A lot of the backlash out there is because of these assumptions of the Click Part 2. The Click Part 1 obviously comprised of Triple H, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Shawn Michaels, and what'd you say on Wednesday?
What's his name? The guy with the underwear over his head?
Elder Montoya
Aldo
was
Montoya.
he was
well, he
part
was
of
the
it.
driver. Yeah, he drove the guys around.
You see how far that got them.
And the reason these assumptions are out there about this being the new Click, and we'll get back to the old Click in a minute, the assumptions are out there about this being the new Click is because Triple H is apparently a fan of both Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. So what? Many are assuming that that is the only reason they're getting pushed. Here's the problem. As I said before in regards to Sheamus, same thing with Drew McIntyre. they have talent. Are they more talented than some of the people who have been there longer and may deserve championships? And what I mean by that is deserve because of the time they've been there, not necessarily what they've done. That's arguable. But they've got the skills to pay the bills. Why can't they be in the spots that they're in? And why must that assumption happen that they are part of the clique? And if it is the case, what does it matter?
Well, here's the thing. Sheamus and McIntyre weren't getting a whole lot of attention until it was rumored that they're, the favorites of the Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Vinnie Mac.
But isn't that exactly the same time when you started to see them more on TV?
Well, no, exactly. And then that's when people started to pay more attention to see, are these guys worthy? So now they're under the microscope. Everything's done for a reason.
Well, and don't disregard this point. When you're laying next to the person making the ultimate decision, Stephanie McMahon, Triple H has tremendous influence on what happens in WWE.
I think
you leave a meeting.
Triple H is laying next to Pat Patterson?
You leave those meetings, you go home, you're talking over dinner, something comes up again. Stephanie's guard may be down, Triple H's guard may be down. Vince and Linda. It happens in any business. There's a distinct advantage that he has as far as influence over anyone else because he's got Stephanie's ear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Well, unless, here's a story of the kind of power that Triple H has. They had a meeting about a year ago when there was problems with things were missing.
In the meeting outside at ringside?
Well, no. Wasn't it ringside?
It was, they were around the ring and there was, they were working.
And what it was is that there was problems where things were missing out of different wrestlers' bags.
Mm-hmm.
And Triple H said, if I don't care who it is, if I hear about it, you're fired. And I have that kind of power.
And as we discussed when that first came out, which is confirmed to have happened, by the way, as we discussed, it's one thing to assume that, but once it comes out of the person wielding that power's mouth, changes the whole ballgame, folks. Does it matter, Meathead, if there is indeed another clique, a new clique? Because people didn't seem to have a problem with the original clique.
The original clique wasn't in the day of the internet that it is now. So the original clique wasn't as widely known as it is today. I mean, if there's an assumed clique too, boom, that thing was on the internet in seconds. You've got YouTube, videos talking about this. So all that stuff's out on dirt sheets and whatnot. Back then, we're talking mid-90s, when there was just maybe the newsletters, maybe a little sniff on the internet, maybe the 900 hotlines.
1-900-909-9900, call me now.
But to be honest, I'm sorry, Dave, excuse me 1 second. It doesn't matter. Are they entertaining you? That's really all that matters.
But
when
the fans can't
TV,
see whether or not they are because they're clouded by this Triple H's carrying.
As I
them
alluded
to
to just about 5 to 10 minutes ago, they have a over-exaggerated, overinflated opinion of what their opinion matters as far as who's earned their spot where.
I think the first clique is far worse than any clique they're going to have right now. Because back then, nobody knew where anyone stood. Now they know it begins and ends with Triple H.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point. And how funny is it, because that was 96, 97-ish, when the clique was at its height. And after that Madison Square Garden goodbye incident with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, who was in the doghouse for about a year.
Triple H.
If not 2.
He was the guy that got buried because they weren't going to bury
Shawn
Michaels. He was the champ. They
Right.
couldn't hurt Razor and Diesel because they were gone.
Nobody cared if they did it to Alabama.
No one cared about the guy with the
And
jockstrap.
X-Pac was on his way out the door anyway. Or 6,
no,
excuse me, or 1, 2, 3 Kid, or whatever he was.
Yeah, he was still there, but
He was on his way out the door.
They couldn't punish him, so.
If not Sheamus and McIntyre, then who? Meathead.
Well,
They don't deserve it. If
the
they shouldn't
obvious
be in that
answer
spot,
would be
who is
Kofi.
it?
The obvious answer would be Kofi with the build that he's had against Randy Orton.
But isn't that the same kind of situation? He hasn't been around much longer.
Kofi's been
than
around
those two.
longer. Kofi's been
Much longer, though. You're
But
talking a year.
Kofi's already been U.S. champ. Kofi's already earned his spot in those positions.
Mhm.
You're talking about two guys that have never held any type of gold before. Boom!
Neither did Brock Lesnar.
You're right. Brock Lesnar is a freak
But
of
he was a
nature.
beast.
And Brock Lesnar had a credible mouthpiece to go with him that would push him to the
But
top.
Brock Lesnar had
the credentials
the credentials.
of the amateur background as well.
I
That's why I think
and
where
his
the
traps
backlash.
were monstrous.
Yeah, that's why I think where the backlash comes from. You've got Drew McIntyre, who, and we're going to talk about this more in depth. Didn't just debut on SmackDown a few months ago.
What's the difference between Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler?
Dolph Ziggler's been around too.
But I'm just saying, there's no difference. I mean, he was getting a push, with John Morrison.
But I think the fans would be much more happy right now if Dolph Ziggler was the IC champ, a feat he could never accomplish. Or hell, if even Dolph Ziggler was the world champ,
but that's because
WWE champion.
The American fans can relate more with Dolph Ziggler than they can with Drew McIntyre.
True.
And Drew McIntyre's mic skills are not good. They're not good at all.
I don't think he's terrible.
I think he's terrible.
He's got a different type of delivery, almost Steven Regal GM kind of delivery.
I think they're terrible. But you're
All right,
asking
so
me,
say
in my
Kofi
opinion.
Kingston.
I mean, that's the obvious answer. But then you go along the lines of Jack Swagger, who's been ECW champion. So again, having been groomed as a champion before, he's more. You're more willing to accept a Jack Swagger because he's held a belt before.
Dave Hero, if not Sheamus, if not Drew, then who?
I still think it's Jack Swagger. I think he's got the look, he's got the size, he has some charisma, and I still go back to his match with John Cena they had. And that's when Jack Swagger became a star, because they had a hell of a match.
Do wrestling fans in general not realize how big a fan of John Cena they are? What I mean by that is this. So much negativity was out there as it pertained to John Cena losing. And then Sheamus being the one he lost it to. Keep in mind that order. Yet you hear all this Cena hate.
Do you think that they were upset that Cena lost, or were they upset that
Sheamus won.
one of the good old boys went over?
Cena's, you saw in the graphic from Dennis Miller this past Monday night, he's one of the golden child. He's the golden boy. Cena's deeper in this than anybody else who's associated with Triple H, quite
Back
frankly. And
and to
probably,
the
what's the
left.
ladder? Taker, Triple H, Taker, Cena, Orton?
No,
That's pretty much all that.
I think it's probably Triple H and Cena together,
Yeah.
than Undertaker, than Orton.
It's their
Why is
business.
WWE PG? Can pin that on about one person who brought it up
Well, you
and
can't-
pushed for it.
Can't pin it on John Cena. There's no way. You
Who
can pin
brought it
on
up and pushed for it. He didn't make the decision to make it happen, but he brought it up
But
and
he
pushed
was the
for it.
face of the
Well,
PG.
I would say that's Linda McMahon.
Oh, that was a contributing factor as well.
But Damien's mentioning who's the face of the PG and what PG is now, and that's John Cena.
I would say so.
Well, is there a conspiracy theory? Is there a founded conspiracy theory, Dave Hero?
No.
Meathead.
Don't care.
Thank you very much for that discussion. Versus, we want to solicit your feedback as to who you want to see in the fantasy warfare here on the Pro Wrestling Report. It's been a couple weeks since we've done it. We're looking for new submissions. You can send those to comments at pwrshow.com. One superstar of today versus one superstar of the past. I think the last one we had was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus HBK Shawn Michaels. And that match, it just really takes the salivary glands active. As it pertains to those two getting in the middle of a ring at their peak. So send those submissions to comments at pwrshow.com. Gentlemen, now it's time to go to our Star of the Week. And I think I will just let David Hero share with you who this week's Star of the Week is.
Sheamus.
And why?
Because he's the WWE champion.
He's the Chizam.
The what?
Chizam.
Shazam is his ear.
You know, back to this conspiracy theory. Remember when Triple H had the same facial hair? Sheamus did? And he gave a... I'm not... Listen, don't say I said this, but he gave a... When asked why he wears his beard like that, he gave a cryptic answer. And I don't remember exactly what the answer was, but it was one of those like... It's like you'll see one day or something. No, it was very bizarre. And this was years before I think Sheamus was on anybody's radar, but... pretty interesting there. So Sheamus, the Star of the Week, I don't think you can disagree with that. He walked into Raw just a couple of months ago, walked into ECW a few months before that, spent a couple of years, several years, since 2002 really, in the wrestling business beforehand, and became the WWE champion when, quite frankly, I would say 90% of the wrestling audience out there did not think he had a chance.
Kind of reminds me of when Undertaker beat Hulk Hogan at Survivor Series. Nobody thought that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And look at the run he went. Another
The
pale
run
guy.
he's still on.
Another pale guy with red hair. What a great run.
The Undertaker does not have red hair.
Oh, he did at the time. He did. but
Mean
he
Mark
debuted,
Calloway
actually.
Me and Mark Malloy may have
is a legitimate redhead.
Yeah.
Okay. No, Sheamus is a legitimate
But
redhead.
is
He's
there,
a damn ginger.
and David, you've brought this up a couple of times, but is there
What?
a bigger star with a bigger presence who can go in the ring and long-term be credible as champion than Sheamus right now in WWE?
Right now, no. They're building him into a monster. They need Sheamus more than anyone knows right now.
Mhm.
Because you know what? Everyone complained they wanted new stars. They got their new star and they're still complaining. You people just can't be happy.
Is it your first time in the wrestling business, sir?
Yes. I can't believe
Sheamus, this week's star of the week and deserving, of course, at least from this panel's standpoint. Mick Foley had some words to say recently, and this was a subject that I deliberately waited a week to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know, Eddie Fatu, known as Umaga, passed away 2 Fridays ago, and was of a massive heart attack at this point, is what we know. But Mick Foley made it a point to call out WWE on their lack of acknowledgement on any of their broadcasts of Umaga's passing, saying that WWE was quote-unquote heartless. Now, we talked about this and said that this is, you know, a unique spot for WWE to be in. Linda's running for Senate. They've got this wellness policy. He had been released due to the wellness policy. He refused to go to rehab. He's then found dead. What do? Well, even given all the complexity of the situation, Mick Foley said WWE pretty heartless as it pertains to their lack of acknowledgement of the passing of Umaga, who is still very fresh in WWE fans' minds because it was only August when he was released.
I will say this. I give Matt Stryker huge props because unbeknownst to people in the office, he snuck in his tribute to Umaga. When he was talking about, I forgot who he was talking about, but he compared him to Usos, which is the Samoan word for brother, which Umaga would call all of his friends, you know, whenever he wrestled. He's like, hey, Uso, Us. So even though it wasn't acknowledged with a graphic, it was still acknowledged through Matt Stryker, and I give him tons of props for that. Well done.
Who else has passed that they did not acknowledge? Who had been recently departed with the company within the last 12 months? Pretty big star, Umaga, headlined to WrestleMania. WrestleMania 23 with Bobby Lashley, pretty much. Who else have they not acknowledged? I can't find a name.
You know what? There was somebody else that they did not acknowledge. I don't want to say it was Mike Awesome. It could have been.
Mike Awesome got acknowledged, but what
But
Damien's point is,
there was someone else that did not put
Damien's
a
point
graphic
is
up.
so fresh in the wrestling fan's mind to get zero.
It would have been relevant for fans watching Raw, SmackDown, ECW Superstars, whatever it may have been, to know that Umaga had passed.
Well, even that Blizzard Brawl, a lot of fans had no idea.
Right, exactly.
You know, they couldn't believe it. But
It's WWE's responsibility, I think. And they did it on their website. Let's not get that wrong. They announced on their website, sent their condolences.
That's a standard issue form letter.
but do they really owe it? You know,
I think they owe it to their fans. I think they do.
I think they owe it to their industry to just do something and accommodate that.
they did on the website.
That's nothing.
The precedent that they have set, though, they did not meet, which is acknowledging stars gone by.
Correct.
And they did not meet their own precedent that they set, and it gets you wondering, why not? And I think the reasons are somewhat obvious in this
Yeah,
situation.
they want to distance themselves from it.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
But, and one of Mick Foley's points was, do they do that by saying he was released from WWE and we've had, you know, whatever, no contact, whatever it may be with him at X date. The other part, a lot of people are making is they threw this guy out on the street to die, knowing that he wouldn't go to rehab.
That's a generalization. I don't think that's really the case.
Well,
but do you think that they're doing this only because Linda is running for office and they want nothing to do with a wrestler death?
They're a company, and when you're in a major company like they are, publicly traded, you have to tread very lightly, and you have to be very careful with what you do. And I think this is a situation where they're doing that. I don't think they threw the guy out on the street to die, by the way. Let me get back to that
I don't
point.
think so either.
But there are people saying that they can't force a man to do something he doesn't want to do.
No, they offered him rehab. He said no, he wasn't going to go into rehab. And
They're no longer responsible.
They had no other choice but to let him go.
Right. To adhere to their own policy. Correct. But anyways, Heartless, yes or no meathead by WWE, not acknowledging Umaga,
Heartless
breaking their own precedent.
Heartless isn't the right word. It's just disrespectful.
Inconsiderate. I wouldn't say heartless.
I'll go with inconsiderate, disrespectful.
The
Same
new
line.
WWE Intercontinental Champion is Drew McIntyre, mate. And let's tell you a little bit about where Drew came from and how he got to the spot he is in, that defeating John Morrison this past Sunday at WWE TLC on pay-per-view. It's time to go in-depth, and this week's superstar is Drew McIntyre. Real name, Drew Galloway. Born in 1985. How old does that make him? I don't do math very well. It took me 4 years to
24?
pass algebra.
24.
Scottish.
Yeah.
He's Scottish. He debuted. He's currently on the SmackDown brand. As we said, he is the Intercontinental Champion. He began training, though, at the age of 15 over in the United Kingdom, and was also in Irish Whip Wrestling. Now, that may sound familiar because that's where Sheamus came up through. As a matter of fact, Drew McIntyre was in several programs with Sheamus. As a matter of fact, in May 2006, after a lengthy feud, he lost and then won successive matches against Sheamus in Irish Whip Wrestling. So these two have history, guys, that came through pretty much the same channels over in the United Kingdom. I think that's a significant point, that there's history between these two. This man, Galloway, Drew McIntyre, who has a degree in criminology.
So he can go in and check in on that conspiracy theory he's
He
involved in.
could. He could, actually. 2003 is when he made his actual debut for British Championship Wrestling out in Glasgow, Scotland. Then moved to Kentucky to join Ohio Valley Wrestling in September of 2007. And worked a program with Paul Burchill, which continued along with the program with Sheamus for Florida Championship Wrestling in April of 2008. I do believe he also held the title for them for a brief time. McIntyre did, before we knew him so well, made an appearance on SmackDown in April 2007. He was a jobber by the name of Hamlet Macbeth against MVP, at the time proclaiming himself to defeat worldwide champions, was MVP, I believe, at the time. Galloway also made his actual WWE debut later that same year, 2007, October to be specific, as Drew McIntyre as a face on SmackDown. Was drafted to Raw in February of 2008 and then fell off the face of the earth until he came back in late August of 2009, where he debuted on SmackDown and was deemed the chosen one by Vincent Kennedy McMahon and became the Intercontinental Champion this past Sunday at TLC on pay-per-view.
But what better way to get heat than to be hand-picked on television by the chairman?
It doesn't always work, though. Ask Elijah Burke.
How do you figure?
Well, it didn't work for him in WWE because he
Right.
was handpicked by
Well, yeah,
Vince
but that was an
McMahon.
ECW, though, and nobody watches ECW.
But it's Vince picking a talent. My
Million
point
people
being,
or so watch that show.
like I said, it doesn't always work.
You know, more people watch Conspiracy Theory than ECW. Got almost 2 million views its first
Well,
week.
that's because of the body,
Mm-hmm.
who was one of the greatest Raw guest hosts of all time.
And not
No,
nominated.
he wasn't nominated.
Yeah,
Nor was
didn't-
Roddy
didn't
Piper,
have
nor
to
was
be.
Sergeant Slaughter, nor was Ted DiBiase.
Who did they nominate? It was Shaq,
Bob Barker, the winner.
right?
Also Seth Green.
Shaq.
And Shaq. And
We have only 3.
no, there was 4. That's how
The
useless it was.
Osbournes.
The Osbournes,
Ah, yeah.
that's it.
Alabama! Anyways, Sheamus. I'm sorry, Drew McIntyre. That's
That's the
where it's
problem we
coming
may
from.
be having coming up in the future, trying to distinguish the two.
He's been in the business for
About a
4
minute.
or 5 years. He's been working up the channels of independence in
He's
OVW
been
and
training for
WWE
9.
since 2007, exactly. So, much like Sheamus, who I said, he's been around since 2004, I believe. These guys have been working in the business for a long time. They've paid their dues, as much dues as you can pretty much pay nowadays in the business. They deserve to be in spots in WWE. The question is, given this information, should Drew McIntyre, is he ready? Is he there? Is he the man to be the Intercontinental Champion?
Well, he's there right now. And let's not forget, it's all work anyhow. So if they don't like how it's going, they can always change directions anytime they want.
Do a house show title change? When's the last time we had one of those? With still pictures from the house show? Backlund and
I
Nash?
think it was a tag team change.
Or was it Jeff Jarrett and Edge?
Oh, might
No,
have been.
that's too far back.
No, it might have been.
You're talking about the one before Jeff Jarrett had to wrestle that night at the pay-per-view. It was the
Yeah.
Saturday night before pay-per-view. No, that's too far back. They actually did a tag title change. Plus, they've done the hardcore belt a few times.
Well, that doesn't
now.
count.
But
Hardcore belt is irrelevant.
Gerald Briscoe was the hardcore champion. Was it Molly Holly that was the female that was the hardcore champion as
The
well?
tag title change you're saying, though, is that they would change it on a Friday, win it back Saturday.
Yeah.
But so it never really mattered.
Or the old typical house show formula, which they may still do. I don't know the last time I've been to a WWE house show, but they would do the false finish. And you would think that the title
Kind of like they did
changed
at the
hands.
TLC this
Yeah.
past weekend.
Those are called the Dusty Finish.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also a bit of a temperature check.
As
See
Frank
how the fans
Constantine would
react.
say.
That's what house shows are for.
So the question on the table again is,
I believe they've answered it, and it's to you, which is, should Drew
Sure.
McIntyre be in the spot he is in now, given his history in
Here's the
professional
thing.
wrestling?
it's the Intercontinental belt. They've hotshot this belt before. I can tell you about an Italian guy who won it on his first day technically in the company when he was just a fan.
Yeah, but
Salvatore
Let me
Sincero.
let me
but
finish.
that
Let me
was-
give my opinion here,
Okay.
and then you can debate it afterwards. Because I'm trying to give it, and you're already jumping on me.
Why don't you just give it?
Okay. Santino Marella won it. Again, it's a little different than the WWE Championship, so it's not so, I guess, hated on by the IWC. It's not too bad a thing to do. You give the IC belt to somebody, and then again, temperature check and see what he's got going on.
No, the reason they put the belt on Santino was because they were in Italy and they
Yeah.
wanted to further the feud between Lashley and Umaga.
Right,
When
but
that-
what I'm using is an example of the Intercontinental belt not being as big as, say, the WWE belt.
Do you
When
think
you
it's
give a
not
bit-
as big because they have 2 world championship belts right now?
They have Intercontinental in the United States.
No, but what I'm saying is before when it was just the world championship, then it was the IC title.
Well, the
now they
WWE
got
has
2
never
world
had the
titles.
world title. It's been the WWE title.
And well, I'm saying, but right back then they only
You're
had
talking about the company championship.
back then
I think
there
the
was-
belts have equal weight, World and WWE. As a matter of
Correct.
fact, if there was one that was higher than the other, it would
It's
be the,
the World.
WWE.
You're wrong. It's
No.
the world. We've had this discussion on this very program.
It would be the
Which
WWE.
belts are worth more? Because as you'll see in the DVD set that's coming out,
Oh, please.
That
Come
the
on,
world
don't
is-
give me that.
No,
Yeah, it's got history dating back to, Pat Koch or whatever, but
Pat O'Connor.
thank you. The WWE title, they've always
Koch.
presented that.
Stop.
They have always presented that title as the top title in the industry. The world title is tainted by WCW. That means nothing
David
to
Arquette,
WWE.
Vince Russo.
Vince McMahon's been the WWE champion, so that's tainted
Far
too.
more believable though than David Arquette or Vince Russo.
Correct. Vince Russo's never been champion.
He was the world champion.
Vince Russo was not the world champion.
I don't know WCW. I don't speak
He
that
wasn't.
language.
David Arquette was.
Vince Russo held the belt.
I held the
for
belt
a
once too.
Can you look into that, please?
We'll look it up. Absolutely.
Okay. But yeah, I know the comments are down there already. Somebody's already Googled
You're
and
always so
Wikida'd
worried
it.
about the comments. Is that why
Because
you do this?
no, it's not why I do it. What's wrong with you?
Drew McIntyre, in depth, some good discussion. And again, we want to continue to hear your discussion. Send us those emails to comments at pwrshow.com. We can include your conversations with us on PWR Interactive, which is our Wednesday show. It's available on demand at pwrshow.com. If you have not done so already, check out the 2009 Pro Wrestling Report Honors, which is available on demand at pwrshow.com.
And you say
as well.
interactive. Obviously, we want the comments. That's why I say it. Keep going.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. For the cause, the man they call me Dad, and David Hero, this is Damian Nelson saying we'll see you again next week.